I'm Shahar Azani, and in the news, author Salman Rushdie's attempted assassination, and is the West about to reach a nuclear deal with Iran? Award-winning author Salman Rushdie is awake and articulate in his conversations with investigators as he remains hospitalized for severe injuries following the horrendous stabbing attack against him in Western New York. The attacker, Hadi Matar, only 24 years old, is a known sympathizer with the Iranian regime. All this while negotiations still continue between the West and the United States with the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding the regime's nuclear program. What is happening and what should we expect moving forward? To discuss this and so much more, we have the pleasure of speaking today with Mehdi Khalaji. Khalaji is the Libitsky Family Fellow at the Washington Institute. He is a native of Iran and has been a senior fellow at the Institute since 2005. His articles and analysis appear in outlets such as New York Times, The Washington Post, Foreign Policy, as well as various scholarly journals. His expertise is Arab and Islamic politics in Iran, and we are happy to have him with us on JBS. Mehdi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's first touch on the Rushdie attack. What have been the reactions to this attack perpetrated on American soil in Iran? And how do you view the fact that the assailant wasn't even born when the Satanic Verses book was published?
Yes, first of all, it's a part of a greater plan to target both Iranian Americans in United States and also American officials. And this is what we have read in official newspapers in Iran, and also the state radio and TV, which is monopolized by the government. So according to some sources, there have been something like 60 cases that Iran attempt to actually target individuals, but with no success. One of them was the Saudi ambassador in Washington a few years ago, and it was discovered by FBI, and the plan was didn't work. There are many people who are accused of being behind this kind of attack, and they are in prison and in judiciary process. So it's not something new, first of all. Second, the Iranian officials, like supreme leader, president, and so on, didn't say anything. They just remained silent. Only the spokesman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that no one should blame Iran for having any kind of role in this incident. However, we have at least 4 important newspapers in Iran affiliated to the supreme leader himself and to IRGC, who have reacted to the terrorist attack immediately and very explicitly supported that, and they admired the Hadi Matar for following the order of Ayatollah Khomeini after 34 years. And whether they had a direct hand in this incident or not doesn't make any difference. The order comes from Tehran. The actual political and spiritual support comes from Tehran, and also that the one of the government institution called 15 Khordad Foundation has allocated more than $3 million for anyone who kill Rushdie or provide some information that lead to their objective. So everything comes from Tehran, and they cannot just deny any kind of responsibility.
Right. It's amazing to see how these extremist ideologies continues to simmer and then erupt with a 24-year-old in such a really ferocious and cruel manner, and that's a warning sign for all of us. I want to mention something fascinating that you wrote. You drew a fascinating line between the Rushdie attack and the fatwa on Rushdie and the fatwa against him, and of course, the nuclear negotiations. Please, for the sake of our viewers who are yet to read that beautiful piece, please explain to us that connection, that equivalence between the two.
Yeah, in Iran, in the legal system and political system of Iran, the only source of legislation is the parliament. So on the paper, it is true that the supreme leader has the absolute authority, and he has some exclusive authorities on many important things, but he cannot legislate any law, or he cannot make his fatwa as a law, except in the state of emergency, when there is something unusual happens, so he can suspend both Sharia law and the country's constitution. So the supreme leader or the ruling jurist is religiously authorized to undermine religion. That's the irony about it. Right. So Ayatollah Khomeini was on his, a few months before he died, the country was in a very special situation. It was the end of Iran signed the UN resolution for ceasefire after 8 years of war with Iraq. Iran had no money whatsoever. The economy was totally corrupt. That's why they signed the ceasefire resolution. So, and they had the crisis of amending the constitution, and also they had dismissed the successor of Khomeini, who was appointed 3 years earlier. And Khomeini physically was very frail and most of the time unconscious. So they needed to create a big crisis to distract both Iranian people and international community from many important challenges they faced. So, all out of nowhere, because Khomeini doesn't speak English, and Khomeini does not read any literature, even novel in Farsi, in Persian. So, and it was not translated. No one knows how this happened. And what is interesting is that Khomeini, usually when he issues a fatwa, it's the written version, they publish it. But we just have heard that through radio. That's it. There is no a written document about that.
So there is no written document about his Rushdie fatwa?
No. And that's exceptional, because we have the all documents published by the center founded by his family, but not this one. That's actually one of the common characteristics between Rushdie fatwa and nuclear fatwa. And for nuclear fatwa, also Khomeini just spelled out and just spoke about that. He didn't provide any written document that this is his fatwa. He first he said in a Muslim Summit conference in Tehran, and then other people just claimed on his behalf. The interesting aspect of the story is that when Khomeini died, they needed to normalize the relationship with Europe because of the. So Europe said that you have to actually cancel this fatwa, and you have to make give all the guarantees that you would not encourage anyone to actually implement this fatwa. The Iranian government said that we cannot. That's for our face. Let us use the fatwa in our propaganda and talk about that. But on private, we promise you that we won't do anything as a government.
Right.
Why? How? They created a formula for that. They say Khomeini had two kind of actually legal responsibility. He was a marja, a religious authority, and the leader of the country.
Right.
That fatwa was issued by Khomeini as marja, as mufti. But we are not mufti. We are just the leader of the country. It has nothing to do with the government itself. So
Right.
they succeeded to deceive, especially Europeans, and they accepted, and they resumed the relationship. When it came a few years later, when it came to a nuclear fatwa, Iran had nothing to provide in order to actually buy the trust of Westerners, because they have cheated many times.
Right.
Inspectors, international inspectors, they had covered, operations and facilities. So there was nothing to provide and say that we are not going to militarize the nuclear program. That's why Khomeini issued the fatwa and said, we are religious, the government is religious, and the legitimacy of the political system is religious. So if we say something in religious framework, we are going to be committed to that.
This is
obviously Europeans did not believe them, so they tried to make the document actually a UN document, but they took it to UN. They tried to legalize somehow that document. It didn't go anywhere. But the interesting thing is that they said something which was totally against the previous formula.
right.
If he's Mufti and he's both Mufti and the leader of the country, so we have to separate these two dimensions of the. So I mean, the world, Europeans and Americans especially, found out that they are really deceiving them. So actually, I think nuclear fatwa never was believed in the West. As Reagan said, that we trust but verify. So that was the, the way Western government dealt with Iran. But another thing which was very interesting was Kharazi. Kharazi is the advisor of the Supreme Leader and former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Something about a month ago, he had a very unusual interview, but usually he's not a man of media. He just prefer to remain behind the curtain. But in an unusual occasion, he said that if we want to make a bomb, we can, and no one can stop that. Which means that he didn't mention fatwa.
Exactly.
He didn't say that there is a religious constraint for that. He said Americans, and no one can stop us from that. That shows this contradicting or inconsistent behavior from Iran.
It's a fascinating point, Mehdi, to show that one fatwa is religious on Rushdie and has nothing to do with government, and another fatwa about the nuclear is everything about government. So you have to trust us. But I want to ask you, when it comes to the nuclear negotiations, what's your estimate? Do you think there is going to be an agreement with Iran from your perspective?
I think it might be an agreement. The problem with Iran always was the question of trust.
Right.
And Iran is, look, I think based on what we read in political science, I define Iranian government a totalitarian government. In totalitarian systems, the decision makers, especially the supreme leader, he doesn't make decision based on the cost effect calculation. So that's why it's always unpredictable. I mean, for the Iranian officials, it's unpredictable what would be his decision tomorrow. He changes his policy, his tactics on even because he micromanages the country on very small issues. For example, the the COVID-19 vaccination. He changed his views on whether we have to import it, whether we are going to import from Europe or from elsewhere, or we are going to produce our own vaccination. So he made everyone confused, and he does. And on the other hand, he never take any responsibility for anything he does or any decision he makes while he wants all the authority. So that's why people talk on his behalf. We don't know whether he says is truly what he means or not. So crazy thing can happen, as happened before. But the country is under a severe pressure, economic pressure. There is a massive corruption in the economy, systematic corruption, which was intentionally created in order to bypass the sanctions. So they are now entangled in this network, I mean, gigantic network of corruption. They cannot do anything about that. And they have mismanagement. And look at the president. The president, he just finished elementary school. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Huh.
Elementary school. So that's it. When he talks, he is not able to pronounce very ordinary words in a correct way. I mean, he's below the average Iranian ordinary people.
Right.
He is totally ignorant about economy, and he says stupid things about economy. And they have this illusion that the more we resist against the West, the better deal we can make with them.
Right.
That's the idea. So that's why they are not in rush, despite the fact that they need to actually make some sanctions lifted, but they don't rush. And there, I think there is some sort of differences within the Revolutionary Guard. There is no consensus about how to proceed in the negotiation. And
right.
If I may,
the final decision rests with the supreme leader.
Yes, yes. And the funny thing is that the head of the negotiators, Ali Bagheri Kani, the guy was against JCPOA before he becomes the head of negotiators. He was one of the outspoken opponent of a JCPOA for many years. And the funny thing is that during this period of his responsibility, he hesitated to use the word JCPOA. So you can imagine how ridiculous the situation is, you know.
It's like the usual vague curtain on the side of the regime.
Exactly.
And even though it's unexpected, I want to ask you one very important question. There is so much more going on with Iran than just nuclear. Iran is a regional destabilizer. It poses a risk to moderates everywhere. It's active in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, all the way to South America. We know, a nuclear deal is going to mean a flow of much wealth into the hands of the regime.
Exactly.
Wealth, which we unfortunately know where it's going to be headed to.
Exactly.
How do you see a solution to this? Should the nuclear issue be discussed alone? Should we discuss the package deal, human rights, LGBTQ? How do you see this situation with Iran?
Look, as long as Iran feels that there is no price for whatever he does, he feels free to continue his aggressive attitude in the region. And as I said, it's a totalitarian system. In the totalitarian system, the terror is one of the main pillars of the power. So they terrorize both Iranian nation and the world. And for Khamenei, having power is to look more threatening and having power to destruct. So they have just the destructive power. Even as Immanuel Kant says, the evil is self-destructive. Even they at the end, they destroy themselves. So we need something much more than just an agreement on the paper with Iran. We need to, the international community need to mobilize and create one a united front against this source of threat for the security and peace, not only in region, as we say, they globalized the terror, and they have all kind of relationship with all kind of Islamic and non-Islamic radical organizations from Latin America to Malaysia and Indonesia. So they are everywhere. And don't forget that they say that they are Muslim, but they are a mafia. And their pattern of working operation, both on the military operation and financial operation, is totally like mafia. They are involved both inside Iran and outside Iran in any kind of illegal trade. So
we've seen the criminal activity in Lebanon with Hezbollah, with drugs.
Exactly. In Latin America, they are in drug deals. In Africa, they are in making other kind of illegal activities. I mean, this is a really big deal, and the world should take it seriously. I think so far we did not feel this responsibility. And it's not just a military or security measures that we have to think about. We have to think about the soft war too.
Right.
Don't forget that they have a huge propaganda apparatus for outside Iran. Can you believe that Iranian government, in addition to whatever they have in the media inside, the radio and TV is monopolized by the government. They have 127 satellite TV in different languages.
Wow, 127 different.
Yes. So they spend a fortune to just communicate with you, and it works. If you go to Lebanon in the Lahia, in the suburb of where Hezbollah lives, they have a huge building just for their Al-Alam TV, and they produce entertainment from music to a TV series.
Just because Mr. Khalaji, just because our time is short, I want to mention one more thing and ask you about this. In all of this, I think we should not forget also about the Persian people, the Iranian people,
exactly,
many of whom are suffering under the boot of this regime. Do you look back at the Green Revolution as a missed opportunity?
Look, the totalitarian system, historically, they cannot be toppled by revolution. So we don't have any historical example of such political regimes that changed with people from inside. They have either collapsed from inside, or they were collapsed by foreign enemy, like the Hitler in Germany. So I don't believe that in Iran, neither reform nor revolution is possible. One of the reasons is that the government has no limit for using violence. So
Right.
if people come
Even through the Basij.
the government, it's not like a classic dictatorship like Shah before revolution. Shah was not able to kill that much people. So people could come to street and do demonstrations and change the regime. In case of Islamic Republic, it's brutal. They have no limit for using all kind of violence. For example, 3 years ago, some people came to the street and they had very specific tangible economic demand, not democracy, human rights. They killed more than 1,700 people. That's too much, only in 1 month. So people cannot just risk their life. On the other hand, there is no organization, nothing. Therefore, I think the international community has a very exceptional responsibility to help Iranian people, and by establishing a democratic government in its place, make the whole world more secure. So I think it's not only about Iranians, it's about the region, and it's about the world.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Khalaji. And thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom. We have learned a lot from you today.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on JBS, Mr. Khalaji, and for your insights and analysis. These are of great help in understanding the complexities of today's Middle East in general, and Iran and the nuclear negotiations in particular. Much, much appreciated, and hope to see you much more on JBS in the future. And to all of you, our viewers, I'd like to thank you all for watching. And to all I say, stay safe and stay healthy. I'd like to thank our director, Sloan Copeland, JBS's managing director, Dara Golob, our technical manager, Michael Paley, transmission manager, John McDevitt, and to our wonderful producer of In the News, Carol Lilienthal. For JBS, I'm Shahar Azani. Until next time, see you soon. Shalom and להתראות.